In this video, I'm going to show you how to start or to do part of the vector art activity using Flash. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you have the directions open. So they're on the server in the Flash in the vector folder, and it's just called the vector art activity. So make sure you look at the directions. What you're going to do is everybody's going to make the ladybug, and after you do that and you save it like you're supposed to, you're going to choose one of these other things to make. Okay, so you can choose any of them. You also notice in the directions it says you don't have to make yours look exactly the same, so if you want to change colors, something like that, you can. But you need to make it fairly similar, so you can be creative. You don't have to make it exactly the same, but if you want to make it exactly the same, that's fine. Okay, and you can see also when you're finished, you're going to save it as an FLA. You're also going to export it as a PNG, so make sure you do that. And then in step 9, you're going to put both of your PNG files in a PowerPoint file. Okay, so make sure you do that at the end. So to make the ladybug, we're going to make a new file, and I'll just use the top action script 3.0. So we have our window. So what I would do is use different layers, and it tells you in the directions it's a good idea to use different layers. So I'm going to start with layer 1, and in our image we can see there's kind of a yellow background. So I'm going to choose not to have a stroke because I really don't need one. Remember, a stroke is just what's around the outside. And my fill, I'm going to make it a yellow. And I'll take up most of the stage, but not quite all of it. Okay, and that's all I need on that layer. So I'm going to go ahead and name that layer, and I'll call it background. And to lock it so I don't accidentally change it, I can click this little button, little dot below the lock. And that locks it. If I try to do something on it now, it won't let me. Okay, so I'll make a new layer. I'll click the new layer button. And on top of the background is sort of a green, looks like some ovals put together. It's supposed to look like a leaf. So I'll grab my oval tool, and I'll change my fill color to a green. And then I'll make some ovals, and I'll kind of put them together. There's lots of ways you could do this. You could make one big oval and kind of change different parts of it, or you could do the way I'm doing and just kind of put some ovals together. You know, we could make one big one and then make some smaller ones. So yours doesn't have to look exactly like this. Just make sure it does have some edges, and it at least sort of resembles a leaf. Doesn't have to be a pretty leaf, just a leaf. Okay, when that's done, we'll go ahead and name that one and lock that one. And we'll make a new layer. Okay, so now I have the ladybug. So I'm going to start with the body. And in the example, it's kind of a purple color. Actually, I'm sorry, it's a pink color. So I'll choose some shade of pink, and I'll make the body. And after I make it, I can use a free transform tool if I want to turn it sideways. You don't have to turn it sideways, but if you want to, you can use a free transform. That looks good. Then I'll go back to my selection tool. Okay, now on top of the body there are some dots. First of all, there's a line in the middle, so I'll grab my line tool, make sure my stroke is black, and I'll just click and drag. And if you want a thicker line than that, you could, before you make the line, you can change the stroke size over here in the properties, or after you make it, you can use the selection tool, click on that line, and you can change the stroke if you wanted to make it bigger. Now you don't have to make it bigger, but if you want to, you can. And that looks decent to me, so about 2.95. Alright, and then we also have the dots on top of the ladybug, or the spots. So I'm not going to have a stroke just because I don't need one. I just want to fill. And I'm going to make some dots. Now you'll notice in the example there are some dots on the edge of the ladybug. So there's a couple ways you could do that. The way I normally do it is I'll go ahead and I'll make a dot right there, and you'll notice of course it goes over the background. So to fix that, there's a couple things you could do. If you grab the eraser and you just try to erase it, it will erase it, but if you get any of the ladybug, it'll erase that also. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo because we don't want to erase the body of the ladybug. So what I normally do is I grab the lasso tool and I'll make sure in my modifiers I have polygon mode selected. So if it looks kind of like it's pressed down on, that means it's selected. And what I'll do is I'll click here to start it. I'll come over here and I'll try to make it sure it's right along the body, and I'll click again, and I'll come out here and then click back where I started, and I'll double click, and it selects just what was in that selection. And then if I hit delete, if I did it well, and you can see it's not perfect because I've got a little bitty part here that's chopped off, but it's pretty good. Okay, so if I was going to turn this in, I would probably go ahead and undo that and make it a little bit better. But really, when you zoom out, you're not going to be able to tell very well that I made a little mistake there. So, you know, it's not a very big deal on this one. In the future, on some of our projects, you would definitely want to fix that. Okay, so if you want to make any on the edge like that, that's how I would recommend you do it. Okay, so that gives us our spots. Now we need to add our legs. And we need to make sure our stroke color is black, because with the line tool, that's all you're working with is a stroke. So we'll make a few legs. And once you make a leg, if you want to move it, you can use the selection tool. You can click on it, and you can either click and drag, or you can use the arrow keys on your computer to move them around. So if you just want to move it a little bit, you can use the arrow keys and just click a few times, and it will move it for you. Okay, so we have some legs, and I guess I'd add one more so he's not lopsided with his legs. And I just noticed actually that another one of my dots is kind of hanging off of the edge, so I'm going to use my lasso tool, and it's got the polygon mode still. I'll double click, select that, hit delete, and that one looks pretty good. Go back to my selection tool. Alright, so basically I've got everything except the head and the antenna now. So there's a couple ways I could do this. I can make a new layer and put it on a new layer, and that's probably the quickest way. Another way I could do is use groups, and it's important you know how to use groups, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and group what I have here. So I'm going to select all of it, use the selection tool, highlight it all, hit Command G, G for group. Okay, so I have that grouped. I click on it with my selection tool, and it tells me in my properties that it's excuse me, that it's a group. Okay, now I'm going to grab my oval tool, and I'm going to make sure I do not have a stroke just because I don't need one. And the head is basically, it's part of a circle. So I'm going to go ahead and make a circle for the head. And then to draw the antenna, I'm going to make two lines. And those lines are kind of thick, so I'm going to use a selection tool. I'm going to click on one, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So 0.1 looks good. Okay, now you'll notice in the picture, in the directions, they're angled. So remember, if we have the selection tool, we can click and we can drag to change the way they look and where they're at. So I can kind of click on the end of it and drag it that way. I can click kind of in the middle to change how it curves. So we want to make sure they're curved. And that looks pretty good. Alright, now what I need to do is I need to highlight the head and the antenna, and I need to group that. So I make sure just that's selected, and I hit Command G. Then when I move that, right now it puts it on top. If I want to change that, I can right click on the group. I can go to Arrange and choose either Send Backward or Send to Back. I'll choose Send to Back. And that puts it below another group. You need to remember that that only works when you have two groups. If I just had a group and a shape, it wouldn't do anything. You have to have at least two groups for them to go on top or below each other. Okay? Now it also tells you in the directions you need to put your initials, so just use a text tool, click, put your initials, and you can put them pretty much anywhere, and that's fine. Now it says to save it, so we'd go to File, Save, and it says, I'm just going to put mine on my desktop for now. It says you should have a Flash vector folder in your documents, so you want to put it there. If you don't have a Flash vector folder, just make one. We'll call it our name, Ladybug. So it tells you to save it as an FLA. It also tells you to save it to export it, because if you save it as an FLA, you put it on any other computer, that computer has to have Flash for you to be able to open it. We want anybody to be able to see it. So we go to Export, and right now we just have an image, so we choose Export Image. And we want to change or save it as an PNG. So we just go down here where it says Format, we choose PNG. It's important for you to know that you cannot just write up here at the top, you cannot just write PNG. If it says SWF, you cannot just write PNG. You actually have to go down here to Format to change it, because that's actually how the computer determines how to, or what file type to save it as. Okay, so make sure you have PNG, and so up here it says our name, Ladybug PNG, and we hit Save. And right here is fine. We'll just hit Export, and it exports it. And now basically you're done with this. You just need to choose one of the others to make. When you're done making the other, you're going to save it the same way, and you'll save it as house, duck, penguin, chicken, or cat, and then you'll put those in a PowerPoint. So to put a PNG in a PowerPoint, you'll just open up PowerPoint, go to File, Insert, and just go to Insert Picture and choose your file, and it should put it right in PowerPoint. But if you have any problem with that, let me know.